We are not on. All right. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Google Cloud Lunch and Learn. My name is Ingrid Gonzalez, and I'm the Google Cloud Sales Director based out of New York. On behalf of the Google Cloud family, I would like to thank you for joining us today. I hope that you, your loved one, as well as your colleagues are doing well during this very challenging time. The Lunch and Learn of today is part of the weekly Tech Talk series. Our goal is to engage with our customer and to serve you better. Previously, we covered topics such as business continuity, Google Meet, DevOps, Kubernetes, and SRE. We want this session as interactive as possible, and the goal being to share best practices with our customer. So I invite you to join us on May 27, and we'll discuss serverless best practices with Gabriela Ferrara. Right now, I encourage you to sign in on the live chat box. As soon as you sign in, we'll be able to receive, after today's session, the Invest for Next event, a feedback form. We really encourage you to provide us feedback. Don't hesitate to share with us the subjects that you would like to hear during the next Lunch and Learn session. At the end of today, you will have the opportunity to discuss questions, and don't hesitate to put them on the YouTube live chat box right now as soon as you have one. Without waiting, I would like to introduce you to Tony Pujals. So Tony is an engineer and Anthos Developer Advocate at Google Cloud. We enjoy obsessing about Google Cloud computing, container, microservices, distributed system, and programming in Go. For today's Lunch and Learn, Tony is going to talk about Anthos, Google Multi-Cloud Application Management Platform, and give you a walkthrough of the Anthos sample deployment, which you can use to try Anthos out for yourself. So without waiting, Tony, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ingrid. Let me go ahead and make sure I'm on the right screen. Okay, quick sanity check here. Am I presenting? And can you hear me okay?
I can hear you very well.
Great. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. I'm Tony Pujals. I'm an Anthos Developer Advocate at Google Cloud. I've been embedded with the Anthos team for the past 6 months, and it's my pleasure today to share some information here about Anthos. What we're going to focus on today is actually getting hands-on. In this session, we'll cover some of the core components, and I'm going to introduce you to the Anthos sample deployment, which is going to give you an opportunity to familiarize yourself with Anthos by running a sample deployment on Google Cloud. And we'll walk through this, and I'll show you how to get started and introduce you to some of the features. For future sessions, there are other areas that we can cover. They won't get covered here today. So we're going to focus really on getting up to speed and getting hands-on. But I will give you a bit of a background here. So let's talk about the Anthos stack itself for a moment. Anthos has an open source foundation, and this is combined and unified to give you this integrated stack that gives you confidence that you can run your workloads based on this open source foundation, and that these workloads are going to run as you expect and where you want them to run. So we're leveraging Knative, for example, which gives you this modern approach to building services. As you make this transition to modernizing your applications, leveraging microservices, this is a very nice model for building microservices that will automatically scale, get automatic networking, right in the language of your choice. They're containerized, but you don't have to focus on infrastructure. But the good thing about it is it's built on top of Knative. It's built on top of Kubernetes itself. So it's going to be this familiar experience for actually how your containers get orchestrated across your clusters under the hood. The next thing is for the operators, we are leveraging Istio, another open source project, which is the foundation for Anthos Service Mesh. And Anthos Service Mesh is going to give you this unified approach to networking and observability of the communication and the ability to shape traffic among your microservices that are running as part of your application. And then finally, as I mentioned, this foundation is Kubernetes, and Anthos GKE is what unifies it across the different environments that you can run, whether it's on Google Cloud, other clouds, on-prem. And what this diagram here is showing you is sort of the layers of this stack. And at the bottom here, we've got container management. Above that, service management, and then above that is the applications that you build and you deploy. And the concerns that kind of address all of those is how do you have a consistent approach to managing your configuration and policies, and how do you manage and observe the entire stack? And that gets filled in here with these core components here. So we got Anthos GKE for your basic container management, your cluster orchestration. Above that, we've got Anthos Service Mesh, which is that unified approach towards shaping traffic, controlling how you roll out services, how you distribute traffic, how you authorize traffic among services, and how you observe all of that in a large microservice environment. And then again, we've got Cloud Build, Cloud Run for Anthos, which are your tools and your development approach for modernizing, extending your applications, adding microservices. And Anthos Config Management here is how you're going to apply policies and synchronize them across your clusters where all your workloads are running. And how you observe that on the right side is the cloud logging, monitoring, and tracing parts that are unified under this umbrella, the unified dashboard that ties all of this together for Anthos. Let's take a look at some of the core components. So with Anthos being our platform for modern applications, we're looking at a couple of three concerns that I've called out here on these slides, and I'll show how these core components, how these concerns are where they're focused. So unified management tooling, powerful policy and security, consistent experience anywhere. These are goals, and where we are tying together like powerful policy and security and that consistent experience anywhere, that's at the bottom of that stack. That was Anthos GKE, and this is what gives you this production grade certified Kubernetes environment that you can run your workloads where you need these workloads running. This is standard Kubernetes, and this is the GKE that you may already be familiar with and tied together under this umbrella. And so if you take a look at what it means to have a managed Kubernetes with Anthos, this is where you get this tested, integrated, certified Kubernetes environment across all of your multiple environments where you're running workloads. You don't have to manage and configure your Kubernetes deployments yourself with managed Kubernetes. So the goal here, and I'm not going to beat this to death, but the goal here is to take some of that heavy lifting work off of your shoulders so you can focus on running your applications, building them, but not having to maintain the underlying orchestration tooling yourself. So if we look at unified management tooling and a consistent experience, that's the focus for Anthos Config Management. That's this single pane of glass that you get for taking a look at your configurations and applying those configurations and those policies and making sure they're synchronized across your entire set of environments where you run your workloads. This is to make it really easy for you to manage your applications at scale. So multi-cluster management, if you're familiar with the GitOps model, the idea is that all of your configuration, all of your policies are maintained under version control. And you apply your changes by committing changes to version control. And then Anthos Config Management is going to monitor that desired state that you've committed, and then it's going to apply it and synchronize it across your clusters. And benefits of this, of course, is by leveraging version control, you're going to have a single source of truth as to what that targeted state is supposed to be. You can audit it, you can revert it, you can make sure you can rely on ACM to work to achieve that desired state and fix it if it's not in the state that you desire. And of course, because it's in version control, you've got versions of state that you can roll back to if you want to. So if we look at policies and security and that consistent experience, that's Anthos Service Mesh. It focuses on giving you a consistent and simple way to manage and control the traffic of your application and to observe it, the communication going on in as you modernize and as you leverage more and more services, that becomes increasingly challenging. And so Anthos Service Mesh provides you with this out-of-the-box telemetry. You don't have to instrument your applications. You're going to get a view of the communication of all your services available to you in a topology graph in the dashboard. You're going to be able to apply changes, for example, to handle canary deployments or other type of release patterns that you want to use, A/B testing, that kind of stuff. Again, this is all based on an open source foundation. It's based on Istio. So it's again, a foundation that you can be confident in, but we're providing the management of it as part of this unified platform. I'll show you this topology graph when we get into the demo. And so I think to drive it all home and all these points together, we're providing this platform that unifies this approach, this consistent management interface towards your operations, your service management, and even the tooling around building the applications that you're deploying as part of your pipeline, and even the programming model as you evolve and are able to exploit serverless through Cloud Run, for example, and take advantage of those features without having to build servers tied to infrastructure. And all of this is intended to be unified and consistent across all the places where you want to be able to run your workloads. So now what I'm going to do is actually show you. I'm going to show you how you can actually check out Anthos for yourself and experiment, run some of the workloads you might want to run on it, and take advantage of the trial that we've got right now, which allows you to actually deploy a multi-cluster environment running under your account along with the sample app. And so let's walk into that. So what I have here are some screenshots in case anything went wrong. I wanted to make sure I had some screenshots to show you, but let's just let's do it. Let's start fresh. I'm going to go to my Cloud Console, and now I have an existing project that I just created, so I don't have to take time, but I want to walk through the process real quick. We just won't wait for it to finish. But if I call this Anthos launch 4. So to run the deployment, you're going to need a project, all right? And easiest thing to do is to start with a fresh, clean project. There are instructions on dealing with existing projects, but I'm going to keep things simple. We'll start with a clean project. And From this project, I can go to the Anthos dashboard. Enable the Anthos API. And this is going to take a few minutes. So what I'll do is I'll skip and show the slides so I don't have to wait for that. Enable the Anthos API. And once that dashboard comes up, we're going to launch the Anthos sample deployment. It's not there yet. So I'll just skip ahead. Once we go through this, it's going to bring up this page on the marketplace, which allows you to deploy this sample deployment. It does give you an estimate of the costs. Now it's free for up to 100 vCPU in 30 days. You do pay for the underlying infrastructure resources that you're consuming. So to do this, you're going to, you should be able to create a new project. If your team doesn't allow you to create new projects or your IT policy doesn't, you can try and use an existing project. And we've got documentation, which I'll give you the link to, that tells you how to set that up. You'll need to be able to do this. You'll need to be able to launch marketplace applications. And then once it's launched, you're going to come up to a screen here where you can parameterize a few things, but you can just go ahead and accept all the defaults and click deploy. And after you click deploy, it's going to take some time to provision all the infrastructure resources that you need, around 15 minutes. And when it's done, you should see this. So there we go. Launch Anthos deployment. I'll just accept the defaults. And there you go. In 15 minutes, this will be done. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and I'll take advantage of the one that I already set up this morning, or actually a couple days ago, yes. Yeah. So here's our deployment. And I'm going to click this button right here, which is to manage it. And that's going to open up another window and take me to the Anthos dashboard. At the Anthos dashboard, I've got this overview of both the cluster and the service mesh. I can see that there's no health setup for my services at this point, but I can see that my cluster is healthy. And let's just dig into this for a minute. Viewing clusters, I can see that I've got two. I can click into the first cluster. I can see some details, and I can also take a look at the features that were set up for the sample deployment. These are already enabled. So binary authorization, cloud run, config management, ingress and service mesh are all set up. So nothing to do there. I can take a look and drill down for more information. I can see that under the hood, it's all Kubernetes. And here's details about my cluster. I can see the two nodes. I can click on one of the nodes. And I can take a look at all the services, everything that's running here, get an idea of the resources that are being consumed on a per node basis. If I want, I can take a look at an aggregated view of all the workloads across the clusters. I can take a look at service and ingress information about any of these services. Let's take a look, by the way, at the sample app that got deployed. So click on here. Here's my ingress gateway for cluster 1. And let's take a look at this public endpoint. And I can see the app is up and running. This is the online boutique. It's open source. There's a GitHub repo for it. It's an example of a microservices application. Different services are written with different languages. the application is up and running. So that's great. So now let's go ahead and let's go to the Anthos dashboard again. Let's take a look at service mesh. So right here, I can see I've only got one application running right now, which is this one under this namespace, the Online Boutique. And I can see in this service, under my service mesh, I can see the services that are running here on the cluster for the application that I just verified was up and running. I can drill into any of these services. Get a sense of the health of the service, its status. We'll set an SLO in a moment. Let's take a look at connected services. I can see the services that either that it communicates with or communicates with it. I note here that we are allowing plain text traffic on the port, so we're going to fix that in a moment. We're going to secure it so it's only MPLS. And let's see. And this is the table view for the service mesh. This is our topology view. So this topology view is going to give me a graphic representation of the communications of the services that are part of this mesh. And I can hover over these and get some information. I can drill in, get a little bit more information. Let's oops. But let's see, what I want to do right now, look at my time. Let's go ahead and set an SLO so we can get information about how our service is performing. I'll pick, go back here. Let's go to the table view. I'll take shopping cart service. Yeah, I should point out that right now, when I'm here, I can see that there are no SLOs set up. And so I don't have any sense right now of how my application is performing in terms of my error budget. This is one of the things that we can do with this dashboard. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create an SLO. And you get this nice little UI here. I'll choose latency. I'll set it to something short, like 10 milliseconds. I'll pick a rolling period of 1 day, and let's just shoot for 90%. I'm picking a very aggressive SLO, by the way, because what I want to do is demonstrate. I want it to be out of my error budget right now. So hence the very short numbers, very small numbers. Let's see. So if I submit this, yeah, I can see I'm out of error budget. So I come up here. Now I have one service that's got an SLO, 10 still don't have any SLO set. And I have a graphic representation that it's not performing to my expectations at the moment, not performing to the target goal that I set. So I would want to go ahead and examine that. I would want to take a look at what is happening with the service and try and understand the latencies using the tooling that's available to me. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to give an example. We noted that we had plain text traffic going through. So let's fix that. And to fix that, I'm actually going to, we'll do that from the CLI. And I'm going to activate Cloud Shell. Gotta wait for a second for it to come up. let's make this bigger. And we'll open up an editor also. So I've created a directory called tutorial. And what I'm going to want to do, by the way, I should point out that everything that I'm doing here and everything I'm going to enter, you can also find online in our tutorial. So if I take a look at these steps for setting up the cloud environment, it's going to be very explicit about what you need to do. Everything I'm doing, you can do by following this tutorial that's online, and the link comes at the end. And there's also a video, so you can take your time watching the video and understanding this in more detail than I'm going through right now. Let's copy this. What I'm doing is I'm in Cloud Shell, and you can do this with your terminal. It doesn't have to be Cloud Shell, but I'm going to download a script that is going to set up my environment to work with this project. So I'll source it in, and that'll make sure the correct Kubernetes context is set, and some of the other things. It's going to clone the ACM repo that we're going to use for applying some changes, and I'll show you how that works. And we're ready. So I want to go into my ACM repo. And this contains the configuration that we've got for this application that we've set up. So what I mean by that is that this source repo has been set up for our cluster, our cluster environment under Anthos. And this contains a state that we want for the entire environment. I'm going to make some changes to this environment, and we're going to see the effects of that. So first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the fact that we were allowing plain text communication. I want only MTLS enabled. If I go into the repo, and this is explained in greater detail in the tutorial and in the docs, but there's a place for everything under ACM where your configuration is. It's all in YAML format. And in this case, I need to take a look at what's going on with my traffic. And I can see that I've got MTLS is set in permissive mode, which means that it also allows plain text. And I don't want that. So I'm going to get rid of that. And I am going to also make a change here to Istio under the destination rule that is going to enable TLS mutual TLS. So having made those changes, let's take a look at gig status. I just updated the mesh policy and I updated the destination rule. Before I apply these, I want to make sure that I didn't introduce any issues. So I'm going to run normal status. I'm sorry. I want to run Nomos vet, but that's okay. Nomos status is going to show you the state of the cluster right now, which is fine. So let's just do that. I can see that my clusters are healthy as far as the configuration is concerned. Both cluster 1 and cluster 2 are synchronizing to the repo, to the master branch of the repo, and they're healthy. So let's run Nomos vet. Nomos vet is going to take a look at the changes I just made to this repo before I apply them and tell me if it sees any issues. And no response is good. So that's great. So let's What I want to do is I'm going to push these, and I'm going to use a little helper function. It's basically just a watch that's going to watch Nomo status and also watch the state of the MPLS traffic and show me when the change takes effect. So I'm pushing my change to the upstream repo, which is configured to be the source repo for ACM. And what I can see is it happened really fast, but it just synchronized this policy to both clusters and enabled Istio mutual. So this is going to disallow plain text. If I went back to here, if I went back to that view, for any of these services, what I'll see, actually, I need to wait a little bit. I'll come back to it because I want to show the effect taking place, but it won't take place. It won't inside of the monitoring window. You won't see that effect right away. It'll still show that it's allowing plain text for a little while until the UI updates, and I'll come back to that. But now that I've enabled MTLS, let's try something else. Let's set another guardrail. So guardrails are policies that you set up in your environment that will help make your environment safe against accidental, inadvertent, or possibly malicious changes. A guardrail is, and an example of a security guardrail would be saying, I don't want any containers to run with, in my pods to run with root access. I don't want any privileged containers because root access is a potential, a potential threat vector. So I want to disable any of them from running. And there's a project called Gatekeeper. Let me open up the link. Oops. ACM leverages this. So this provides this foundation for setting policies. These are open source policies. And if I dig into the library here, I can find a number of policies. So if I look at, for example, pod security policies, and the one that I'm going to use is this one for privileged containers. And in here, it provides you with what the YAML should look like to enable that policy, and also gives you an example that you can use to validate that that policy has been applied, to confirm your expectations. And that's what I'm going to do. So what I want to do is create a cluster policy. And I'll just copy paste. This is going to be oops, that's not the policy. That's the test. This is the policy that I'm going to apply. That's going to restrict privileged containers. All right, so make sure that ACM sees that as a valid policy. So I'll run Nomos vet. Now let's go ahead and add that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to push that policy, and I'm going to watch Nomo status to see when that policy takes effect, and then we're going to test it. So we can see there's a pending change. And now we can see that the clusters are synced. So let's test it using this example that they give you. I may have already created this file. I think I did. I did. So there it is. I put it under the tutorial folder. And so what I want to do right now is apply this. And try and run it. I mean, so I just tried to launch a pod basically as a privileged, a pod that had a privileged container in it. Okay, so Nginx here set to privileged true, and I got a very clear response here. This is not allowed because it violates one of the constraints. So security, so guardrails in general, and especially these security guardrails are very powerful constructs for preventing things from happening inadvertently, possibly over time, possibly as a result of updates of deploying new services as your application evolves. It's to protect you against introducing errors into your environment. These monitor and continue to monitor. It's something that you don't have to do. It's not something you have to validate as part of your analysis of your configuration. When you deploy your configuration, it's something you can rely on the environment to do for you dynamically. So definitely, let me bring up the tutorial again. Definitely take a look in the section on the tutorial, and then and follow the links and explore from there for taking advantage of policy controller for your guardrails. A very powerful feature of ACM. The idea that you can apply these policies and that ACM is going to automatically synchronize them to all of your clusters wherever they are, whichever cloud they're running on-prem, Google, AWS, and then monitor and keep those in effect is strong, is very compelling. So I think done a little bit early, but that's going to give us time for questions. So let me double check here. Yeah, here are the links. There's a blog that introduces a sample deployment and the link to the tutorial itself in our docs that provides you with this walkthrough, and it's a little bit more comprehensive. And there are more things for you to explore and do on your own, but this covers the core features of leveraging Anthos Service Mesh, Anthos Config Management in a real live cluster that you can test yourself. You can deploy your own applications into it. You can delete the demo application. You can try it with your own applications and make sure you have this opportunity to familiarize yourself in a light touch way that was not available before. There's no, you don't have to contact sales. You don't have to set something up on-prem. This is a great way for you to get up to speed with Anthos and go through the docs, explore these features using this live deployment. So I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the window with questions.
Excellent.
Right.
So So first questions on the right corner from Anna.
Anna, is there a quick lab or a way to try? Well, great question, Anna. There actually is some work going on for a quick lab. The reason why we have this, the Anthos sample deployment, is that we had a lot of customers say that, one of the problems with a quick lab is those environments are recycled very quickly. They're free, but they only last a day. This environment allows you to actually, because it's complex and there's a lot involved, this allows you to spend more time exploring Anthos, possibly sharing with the rest of your team. And that's why there's that's why it's a trial. That's why you can take advantage of it for up to 100 vCPUs in 30 days. The only thing you'll have to pay for is the cost of your infrastructure usage, but that should be fairly modest. That price estimate that you saw was the estimate for what it will cost you if you left it up running after the free period ended. If you leave your clusters up and running past the free period, you'll automatically get converted to pay as you go, and that's 30. What was it? Let me bring up the pricing. I'll find the link and I'll put it up here in just a second. But you'll definitely want to take a look at the pricing page to see what the cost is per vCPU if you're not in a contract and you keep your app running. Anna, let me know if that answers your question. I do think at some point they will have a quick lab that's available for workshops where but it goes away in a very short period of time. This is something you can use that'll last for a while. So let's see. The next question is, I would like to try Anthos through some trial account. Well, so this is again, this is how you do that right now. It's not, you'll have to have an account. It's not a trial account. It has to be your account. You'll have to have organizational policies that let you create a project and let you deploy from the marketplace. But it is free for a trial period. How does one test Anthos in a dev environment? What would be an ideal application for preliminary testing, or where would you get an ideal starting place for Anthos to be? So I actually recommend starting with the Anthos sample deployment and the sample app and explore that and get familiar with it. Now that is an example of an app that's already been it's already a microservices application. It was designed that way from the get-go to demonstrate features of having a service mesh, that kind of stuff. That's not the only kind of application you can run on Anthos. You may have an existing application. Maybe you're in the process of modernizing. It's a monolith at this point. Maybe it's a classic Java web application. That's okay. That will work as well. The features that Anthos gives you will actually allow you to exploit the benefits of migrating towards a microservice architecture and the cost reduction and performance that's potentially available to you for more optimal use of your infrastructure. So for example, by leveraging service mesh, you can start to distribute traffic to microservices that you start building as you decompose your monolith, and and instead of having this large process that you scale at the level of different services and take advantage of the tooling there for visibility into that application, the performance. But my point is, it doesn't have to be a microservice application to start with. It can be your existing application. So I would say start here. This is the ideal way. This was developed by the Anthos onboarding team to give you a smooth experience onboarding onto Anthos and to take advantage. Let's see. Eric, I imagine Anthos working differently on-prem versus in GCP. Manager, not a dev, so no worries. So that's the whole point actually of Anthos. While there's a different process to get Anthos set up on-prem, and you'd want to, start, contact your sales team to get started, if that's what you want to do. Anthos, while there is not 100% parity yet on all the features, Anthos provides the single unified dashboard for managing and monitoring all of your clusters and your workloads wherever they are. So it's not meant to be a different experience as far as being the operator is concerned. If it's not a different experience for the developers, it's not a different experience for the operators. There's a different experience in terms of getting it set up. Any other questions? Wow. Okay, great. We're done a little bit early. Well, thank you, everybody. I think there are definitely a lot more advanced features that we can cover in future sessions. I think multi-cluster, leveraging AWS, for example, is a good example. Cloud Run, binary authorization. Those are topics that I would be happy to cover in a future Lunch and Learn.
This is wonderful. Thank you very much, Tony, for the great presentation. Thank you for the question from the customers. Definitely, we value and appreciate your time. So we're looking forward to see you to the next series. When I was offering you to join us next week for the serverless best practices with Gabriela Ferreira. So we'll send after the session of today a registration form. As you can see, we created an environment where you have all the sessions from past session and future sessions that are recorded. So I encourage you to subscribe on the YouTube Live. And to conclude, I wanted to wish all of you a wonderful end of day as well as a great week. And I'm looking forward, and Google is looking forward to welcome you to the following and next session next few weeks. Have a wonderful day and take care of you. Bye-bye.